Okay, hello everyone. Hi, Malar.
Hello, Tatiana.
Yeah, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. It's almost Friday, so that's fine. How is your weather?
It's so hot. It's 39 degrees Celsius here.
Oh, oh,
Right.
really hot.
How
It's
about you?
well, it's not so hot. It's like 10 or 15 degrees in Poland right
Wow.
now. Yeah, that's fine. I love it. Yeah. Okay, so we'll get started in some minutes. We're waiting for some more people to join us, and then we'll get started shortly.
Sure.
Yep. Okay, I see that many people have joined us, and I think we already can get started. So today we have a very interesting topic to discuss, and Malar is our speaker today, and she has a great experience regarding the role of the BAs in machine learning projects. So I hope that you will enjoy this webinar today. So we'll get started shortly, and in the end of the presentation, we'll have a part for Q&A session. So please put your questions in the chat, in YouTube or on VR community, whatever you prefer. And I hope that we'll have some time to answer these questions. So I think we can start. And Malar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tatiana. So, to the topic of today's content is what a BA does in machine learning projects, right? But before going into that topic, I would like to give a quick introduction about AI and machine learning project phases, and then we can dive into what BA does in each phase of the ML project. And finally, we will also talk about responsible AI, and not just responsible AI, but how to evaluate your model with responsible AI tools. And there are some best practices that I followed that I'll share a few with you. Okay, then let's get started with introduction. So you see, machine learning is one of the basics of artificial intelligence. Right now the world is moving towards Gen AI, LLMs. So you can see where the LLM is. So it is actually it will take the deep learning part of machine learning and natural language processing. That is how LLM is developed. But what is the basic for everything? It is actually machine learning and natural language processing. And for machine learning, data is the fuel, right? So without data we are not going to do anything. So data, statistics, mathematics, everything is important for machine learning. Right. Now let us get into machine learning operation model. It looks like DevOps, right? Real name of machine learning project lifecycle is, we call that as a ML ops, machine learning ops. So that is why you are seeing the DevOps diagram over here. So for any machine learning project, we will start with formulating the strategy. First, we will get the business case or the problem statement, and based on that, we need to develop our strategy. And what is the next phase? That is data. So data is the fuel of any machine learning project. So we'll start with data collection. Data collection is a very big part. I'll explain it later in further slides. And then data cleaning, data pre-processing, and also we will try to understand the data characteristics, its relationships, its differentiators, so that we can feed our model with proper parameters, right? So then we'll do feature engineering as well to understand the feature extraction, and then we'll prepare data sets. So with this normalized processed data, we will prepare data sets. Usually we will follow 80-20 rule for trained data and validation data. Apart from that, there is a separate test data set that we'll prepare. And finally we will develop the model. And when I say developing the model, you, in the initial strategy itself, you will formulate this algorithm, hyperparameters and validation metrics and everything. But then it will evaluate. So it will change. The algorithm may get changed, your parameters may get changed. We will see my real life project in a few minutes. You will see about it. And then finally we will train our model, validate our model, and evaluate with different metrics for every different machine learning type, we have different metrics we need to follow. So based on that, we will evaluate the model, and based on the evaluation, we may again need to fine tune our model and test our model finally, and then finally we will deploy and do the inferencing, right? So now let us move on to the project phases. So first, I would like to give my problem statement. I cannot reveal the actual problem statement and solution because of NDA reasons. But so here I have a different problem statement that is relevant to my current real life project that I was working. Assume a form that has 10 fields. Okay. So the first field is a text area and that have 8,000 character limitation. So based on the input that user is going to enter in this text area, you need to compare the data, that is history of data. You may have 3 years, 5 years, and many years of data, right? So you need to compare it and then find out the values for rest of the forms. So that is the task. Okay, so basically what we need to do, we need to do the full text search. But in full text search, you need to do a lot of normalization and a lot of other things that you may need to do this and then find the data, right? So that is our problem statement. So with this problem statement, we decided that we need to implement a machine learning model to predict it. Okay, so first thing, as I stated, so we defined the strategy and success criteria. And as a BA, I involved in this defining the strategy and success criteria. So what model to choose and how are we going to collect the data? Because your data is everything. If you didn't collect the diverse set of data, then what will happen? Right? Your model will fail eventually. So how do we collect this data? How do we start this process? And what are the things that I need to do, because I need some manual data as well, right? So how the user do it manually. So I was involved in that. I've done user research in collecting the manual data, right? And also defining success criteria, because we initially started off with POC. So when we start any POC, the first thing we need to do is success criteria definition, right? Without success criteria we cannot do anything. So we defined our success criteria for that. And finally we got into the phase of choosing the ML model. What type of model will choose here? Is it supervised learning, unsupervised learning? So what type of model will be applied here, and which algorithm to choose? Because we need to do full text search and we may need to find out the distance between the text, the vector distance, and etc., right? So what algorithm is best for this, and which tool are we going to use, so all this discussions were happening, and what is the validation metrics we are going to choose. This is everything is on the discussion phase. Okay, so this is how the project is started, and I was involved in all these phases. Now moving on to how model is actually developed, right? So the first thing is, we have chosen unsupervised learning. The main reason is, we can't label the data. That's a 8,000 character data, and that's a text, right? So you can't label the data. So system need to find its own patterns and structures on its own. So unsupervised learning is the one thing that will work best. So we gone with unsupervised learning. And then data set preparation, right? So in data set preparation, so we had to normalize the data, and we had to, there are some privacy, you need to consider all the AI ethics, right, whenever you are developing the data model or anything. So considering the privacy, security, and all these things, we had to normalize the data so much, and feature scaling also done. And finally we decided to go with Azure. Okay, so we decided to go with Azure blob storage to store all the data sets. So the training data set, validation data set, testing data set, everything is stored in blob storage. Next, so we used Azure cognitive search with AI capabilities, because if you can Google about Azure search functionality, Azure AI search. Now the latest name is Azure AI search. If you Google it, so you will understand about Azure AI search. It provides you with BM25 algorithm. It has indexers, it has filters, and you can do the full text search, and it have so many AI capabilities as well. And it even have the scorecards too, so you can make the predict the scores as well. So Azure AI search has so many capabilities, that's why we have chosen it. Next, when you are choosing Azure AI search, you have to configure your BM25 algorithm. Initially we don't know, right? So we have gone with the default BM25 parameters. k index and n index and etc. But eventually when we train our model and evaluate our model, so we had to change the bm25 algorithm parameters again and again, so that we can get the correct output, right? And finally we have chosen the evaluation metrics as accuracy, precision, recall, fn score, very normal evaluation metrics for any this type of so unsupervised learning metrics, right? But you know what happened, the interesting thing is, initially we didn't start with Azure. We actually started with AWS with a different similarity algorithm called as cosine similarity algorithm. And we were using TF-IDF vectorization to calculate the distance. And we were using a different evaluation metrics, different visualizations and etc. But eventually due to pricing reasons, because AI will not come with as a free, it's free thing, right? So it comes with a price. So we already had this Azure subscription. So if we are moving towards AWS, we had to purchase one more subscription as well. So considering all this pricing, and also we evaluated whether AWS this algorithms is existing in Azure or not. So we did some experiment in Azure, experiment in AWS, and we compare the results, and the results are more or less same. So then we decided, okay, then why do we need to go with AWS, right? Let's go with Azure. So that's how we moved to Azure. We originally started everything in AWS, right? So now, as I said, what the I had to create all the technical user stories for this project. So first thing is I created a story to create a search service and then configure the parameters in Azure. And then another story is creating the index. So index is some kind of, there are so many, like if you know SQL, you know what is the meaning of index, right? So the same thing even here. So we need to create an index. We need to find that one particular key with how you search your other data, right? So we were defining the index. Again, I was involved in here, so I know which field has a potential to become a document key. So I gave my inputs as well, and finally we created the index. And also we need to fill in our analyzer and scoring profiles as well. So based on what we did in AWS previously, so we had some knowledge on how to set the scoring profile. So we decided that. And then indexer. So indexer is what you will mention about for better performance or scalability, I would say. So we had to create indexer as well. And the another thing is configuring this BM25 algorithm. As I said, we gone with default scoring, then we changed our scoring based on the evaluation that we done. And finally, creating a query engine. So you did everything in Azure search service now. So you need to create a query engine to extract the information and validate it, right? So we created the query engine, we created the service to do that. And finally, with that query engine, we were able to run, test, and refine it. It is just like, you do this Google search and finally you're getting some results and you're evaluating, right? So in a similar fashion, I used Postman to again and again call this particular API and then test the results, and again change the scoring profiles or this BM25 algorithm parameters. So again and again this refining was happen, finally, until we achieve this uh, 70% accuracy. So we were again and again we were running the test. And finally we created this visualization evaluation to prove, it have 70 percentage of accuracy and everything. Okay, so this is what we done in this particular ML model development. But as I said, what as a BA, what I have done, right? So when we go to that part, so I was involved from the ideation till release, even in fact after release, because I had to do the monitoring as well to to find out, or we might have initially defined, okay, this will be the performance, this is how it will predict, but sometimes it can give some biased suggestions as well, right? So we need to validate all of that. So I was involved from the requirement elicitation and brainstorming for feasibility analysis. And also, as I stated, I was involved in data collection, normalization things as well, and to understand the data characteristics and choosing ML model type, algorithm, tools, etc. But what I was doing in during the development, so I was creating this user stories and was completely involved with development team to configure the profile, and I was also experimenting in Azure to change the profiles, to change the scores and experimented so that I can also help something towards my developers, right? So I was doing all these activities and also as of course coordination. So this is what I have done in my project. So now moving on to responsible AI. Even before I was talking about this AI ethics, right? So I was talking about privacy and security, and that is the reason we were doing this normalization and all these things. But there are some other AI ethics you need to consider. So, fairness, transparency, safety, privacy, security, inclusiveness, very important, no bias, accountability, and responsibility. Right. So, these are the basic things that you need to, whenever you are developing a AI model, be it a ML model or any kind of model that you are developing, even if you are doing some LLM projects. So, make sure that your AI feature have all this. So how can we evaluate whether whether this ML model have all this or not? So that's why, we have some tools available. So these are again a few hacks principles, which is again, whenever you are designing a UI for this AI feature, even your backend as well, but coming to AI UI, so we need to call out what system can do, what it cannot do. For example, if you go to chat gpt and if you enter some questions and it is giving you some results, but you notice there is some message at the bottom saying that it is just generated by chat gpt and we won't give you any promise of correctness and everything. It is up to you to evaluate the correctness. And they are also stating that this data is 2021 old data. So they are giving all this information to you. Why? Because you need to understand what the system can do and what it cannot do. So you need to call out all this in your UI. And then mitigating biases, there are so many options available to mitigate the bias. And when coming to machine learning, so it starts from your data collection. When you're developing or gathering your data, make sure it is diverse enough. Okay. And support efficient invocation. So how do I use this AI, right? So where do I need to click? So you should give that option to them. And mainly, you need to give this opt in opt out at any time. Because of this privacy reasons, we need to get user consent. And also you need to give this opt in opt out feature at any time. And you need to remember the recent interactions and learn from user behavior. This is very basics of AI. Okay, so that is not a big deal. And notify user about changes. If there is any changes available, you need to notify the user. That is applicable to any application, not only AI application. And convey the consequences of user actions. If user is trying to ask some biased question even in chat gpt, you can notice that chat gpt will give you the warning that this is a biased question. There is no answer for that. So similarly, you need to notify user about the consequences. And you need to get the feedback, of course, and efficient dismissal. So these are basic hacks principles you need to follow whenever you are developing a AI model, right? And moving on to how to evaluate the responsible AI. You know, so for evaluating fairness, there is a fairness 360 tool is available, and TensorFlow responsible AI is available, which will give you the evaluation whether your model is fair and no bias, free, and etc. And explainability interpretability, again there is a different tool available. Open source AI explainability 360 and SHAP is available. And for privacy and security, we have art. And for RA assignment, we have responsible AI toolkit by PwC. But you know what, this is a separate tools for uh, detecting different evaluation. For example, fairness and bias, we have AI fairness 360. Privacy security, we have art. But you know what, we have Azure machine learning responsible AI dashboard, which is a uh, you know it is like a dashboard. It will evaluate everything, from fairness, privacy, security. It will evaluate almost everything. And it will, you can even trigger you can even configure the kind of monitoring alerts and all. So for any application, you see there are few applications available where we can configure the alerts if there is any performance issue or security issue, right? So in a similar way, you can configure here as well, it can alert you well. In a particular, I was also working in another project where it is a LLM based project. So there I got to know that, I can you even control the output. So if the output has lot of biases, so this Azure machine learning safety API is available. So this API will block the output, because it's not good to offend the user, right? So we can state the different error saying that, okay, so there is some problem in fetching the output, that's okay. But if you are giving some biased output, that will offend the user. So there are some safety API tools are available with Azure, so it will block those biased responses as well. So there are so many tools available to evaluate your responsibility of your AI. Okay. And now coming to the best practices to be followed in any AI projects. So starting with understand the business objective. Sometimes, you don't need AI to solve the problem. You can solve with normal data analytics, other data analytics tool, or simply you can go with some other automation, right? So you need to understand the business objectives really well, and you need to evaluate whether your application have the feasibility of doing that. Let's say I want to develop a ML model, but my company is a startup company and I don't have data, very good data. So what can I do, right? So just try to understand whether you are able to do that or not, and is it necessary, because AI comes with a price. So evaluate the necessity, is it worth it or not, right? And identify the key stakeholders that is applicable to any project, and defining clear requirements again applicable to any project, and collaborate with data scientists. So this is the one thing that will differ, right? So when you start involve your data scientist in a very beginning, so that they can give lot of inputs to you. They in fact changed my understanding or idea of the solution strategy. So collaborate with data scientists in the very beginning phase. And data governance and quality, especially I was also repeatedly talking about this data privacy, security, and etc. So that is very important. And address all ethical and integrity considerations, because if your application is going to be in US region, so there are some laws available. So you need to comply with that law. So make sure that where your application target market is, and make sure that you are complying with all the regulatory considerations. And expectations. So realistic expectation, so you should not expect the accuracy to be 100%, right? So that is not possible with our training and etc. So you need to go with the realistic expectations. Okay, 70% accuracy is good enough, so go with those kind of realistic expectation. And monitor and evaluate performance, very important for any application, not only for AI. But in AI, we need to monitor not only the performance, security, and etc., but we also need to evaluate all the responsible AI features, right? And selecting appropriate algorithms and models, be it any machine learning model, we will do some experiment and then only we will be able to choose, right? And the data preparation and pre-processing, that is again same thing, data as data governance and quality. And feature engineering, where you will extract the meaningful features, right? So you need to again experiment here to find the techniques. And model development and training, evaluation and validation. So whatever you do, right, so make sure you are following all the principles that whatever is applicable. And whenever you are developing the model, make sure it is scalable and efficient AI solution. So in an urgency, we should not develop the model and say, okay, it is perfect, but will it be scalable in the future? So we need to think about that as well, because we are feeding some data here. And sometimes, after some 5 years or 7 years, I need to again feed the data, a different data. So if I feed the data, will the system be able to uh, understand the change deduction, whether it have the change deduction or not? If you remember, I was talking about change deduction in the indexer, right? So because I was using Azure AI search service, so it have change deduction. Even in AWS, we had one change deduction mechanism. So you need to understand about different scalability mechanisms, and understand whether your particular tool, whatever you're using, have this feasibility or not. Okay. And that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was a very interesting presentation and speech, and I see that there are a lot of questions here for you. So I'll try to figure some of them here and ask, and probably the rest can be discussed offline. So you can see that Malar is sharing the screen with the contact. So please reach her if we don't have enough time to answer all the questions. And I will start with the first question. So we have a bunch of questions from Mihailo. Let's start with the first one. So are there workflows the same for classical machine learning and for deep learning? It seems to me that they have different workflows. For example, in deep
Yes.
learning, there is no need to do feature selection. For different machine learning methods, there will be probably also different workflows. What do you think?
Yeah, that's correct. Since we didn't use deep learning, right? So we had to do all this feature engineering and this feeding some information, etc. But when you're working with deep learning, this is not applicable.
Hmm. Okay. Thank you. We have one more question from Mihailo. How can we achieve decision transparency if we use deep learning? Explaining to end user why a neural network made a particular decision is not an easy task at all.
It's definitely not an easy task. So uh, we can try I never worked with deep learning, but I know deep learning. But even in this machine learning part, right? So whenever we are trying to tell them, this is how it was predicted. So again, we have discussed so many times, and we brainstormed among ourselves to finally give some explanation, right? So that explanation is a very high level explanation, not a in-depth explanation, because it's a very big thing that we have done, right? So we had to explain it in a high level and user understandable level, right? Because those users are not into machine learning, so they will not be able to understand if you tell something at a technical level. So we need to tell in a different language. So we took UX help as well. So we had a very good UX expert, microcopy expert. So we gave our input, and he also helped in for refining that output, so that we can explain that in our KB page, the help center page, so which we are going to share in the AI tool. So similarly, even at any model, we need to come up with some different high level explanation, I would say.
Great. Thank you very much for this extended answer. We have one more question from Juan. How do you manage or mitigate the uncertainty in user stories, since usually this requires some experimentation before
Yeah.
selecting which approach works best? Yeah.
So the first thing I did was I took the course first. So because I was not used to Azure AI search, right? So I had some experience in AWS, but not with Azure AI search. So first I took the course. We created spikes for everyone, for all the developers, data scientists, and even for me. So we do did the knowledge training for 1 week, one sprint. And in next sprint only we have taken few experiments. Again, as I stated, we originally started with POC, and we did the POC in AWS, and we originally started with AWS. Then due to pricing concerns, we had to switch to Azure. So again, we have to do some experimentation for nearly 2 sprints and 3 sprints, and then only finally we came to, okay, this is what we have to do. So it is lot of spikes. There are a lot of spikes that was created before I created my first user story.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Um, okay. Here is one more tricky question. Why BA was performing activities that are traditionally the responsibilities of data analysts and data scientists on the ML projects? What do you think?
Yeah, because I was this particular position, this responsibilities varies from project to project, right? So in my previous project, I was a pure business system analyst. So it was a pure technical role where I had to take the code and do the debugging and dynamic white box reverse engineering, so that I can write user stories or recommendations for the gap analysis or to be structure. So in this particular project, my role is techno functional BA. So you had to help in data phase, as well as you need to closely work with data scientists and development team as well. So that essentially it will vary from project to project, I would say. But having this knowledge is not a it will definitely help you even though you get the functional role. But if you are able to understand, okay, what is BM25 algorithm means, why are we using that, what is unsupervised machine learning, so that will eventually help you in understanding how this application is developed, I must say.
Great, thank you. And I think I see that a lot of people wondering what is the name of the course you have completed. Could you please share?
Yeah, it's a Microsoft course only. So I'll fetch in and I'll share it with maybe with Tatiana, or I'll attach it in the
Yeah, sure.
PPT because we are
Mhm.
going to share this PPT, right? So I'll attach it in the
Yep.
PPT. It is a portal called Deep Learning where you can learn deep learning, but Microsoft itself will provide you a lot of courses. If you go to Microsoft Learn portal and if you search for machine learning, Azure AI, you will get lot of courses and they will teach you like you are a baby, right? So they will start from basics and they will teach you very good. Because I have experienced it, it was very good.
hmm Great, thank you. I hope that it will help many people. All right, we have one more. Well, actually, we are running out of time, but let's answer the last question, and probably the rest can be answered offline. So, how do you choose machine learning model?
So again, as I stated, we did some POCs, right? So in the POCs, we were trying to understand whether we are able to, because we originally started with, maybe is it possible to label the data? We were not able to label the data. Do we need another type, right? So even within unsupervised learning, so you have different things such as classification, and even within classification you have binary classification, multi-class classification, and so many things. So within this, which model suits well? So again, with the data scientist help, so we were doing lot of POCs and finally we came into the conclusion, okay, this is what we have to do, this is what best suit our problem statement. So based on your problem statement and your need and what is the data you have, especially you need to understand your data well. So if you understand your data well, you will definitely choose your model, and you need to have some high level understanding on all different models as well, right? So you need both of this to choose the model, I would say.
Mhm. Great, thank you very much, Malar. So I think we're done for today. That was a really, really interesting speech, and I see lots of people asking for answering their questions. So probably let's do this way. I will put them for me and share with Malar, so you can contact her directly, and you can get the answers offline since we're already out of time.
Yeah.
And yeah, as I've mentioned in the chat already, the recording will be available on the page of the event and on YouTube as well. And we will also attach the presentation on the page of the event along with the name of the course. So I think thank you very much for this session, and thank you for
Thank you.
your active participation in the Q&A session. That was really cool. It was really a boost of questions. And thank you for answering these questions, Malar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Thank you,
have a
Tejana,
nice
for
day.
organizing this event, and thank you participants for joining.
Yeah. Thank you very much, all of us, and have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.